CityWorks Expo is a collaborative, co-creative, and multidisciplinary idea exchange and festival conference that happens each fall in Roanoke, Virginia. By day, attendees are immersed in thought-provoking presentations, riveting performances, and engaging dialogue. By night, the conference continues with after-hours networking opportunities during street festivals, parties, and musical events. To learn more about Expo, visit cityworksexpo.com. Expo 2014 was made possible by these fine sponsors.
Hello. My name is Duron Chavis. I'm co-director of an organization called Renew Richmond, as well as director of the Virginia State University Indoor Farm. And today I'm going to talk to you about a concept that many of you might be familiar with, but I'm going to take it to a different direction called sustainable urban agriculture as community development. Let's see if this thing works. All right, yes. This is Richmond, Virginia. I'm from there, born on South Side, south of the James River. The city, regardless of what the PR department likes to say, I call it slightly schizophrenic. On one side, it's touted as this historical city. You go down Monument Avenue, you have statues of Confederate generals, but then on the other side, you have this enormous history around the African slave trade that's virtually ignored. You have ignored to even the degree that you would have an African burial ground in Shockoe Bottom that has been proposed to have a baseball park developed in its vicinity. Really odd conversation considering that same area, Shockoe Bottom, when the transatlantic slave trade ended and the intra-slave trade started, Africans from throughout the country were sold, even to the point of, 12 Years a Slave? Solomon Northrop, in his book, recounts having been sold out of Richmond, Virginia. That schizophrenia plays itself into its more recent rebranding as a foodie town, fit for millennials and hipsters. What's interesting about that is that you have people that are born and live in Richmond that do not have access to healthy, fresh vegetables, nor could even afford this new restaurant scene that Richmond touts itself as. These are Richmond, Virginia's food deserts. The city is 26% impoverished. They're mostly concentrated on the south side. Let's see, my button doesn't work. South of the James River, and in the East End. Now, the USDA defines a food desert as an area, and this is a very dry description. It's an area that does not have access to a full-line grocery store within a mile or more of its residents. That's the textbook definition. You go into these communities, however, you have bodegas, convenience stores, restaurants, and typically, they don't really have the best quality food. You have things like corn chips. You can go down the aisle, got tons of candy. Go into the refrigerator area, probably about 4 or 5 refrigerators of alcohol, juice, and literally no milk, no meats, and if you have any prepared foods that you could prepare, it's usually processed, Stouffer's meals, maybe some Hot Pockets. However, if you go into the West End, bevy of stores galore. Now, the reason why this is an issue is that this conversation came from somewhere. These food deserts is not the byproduct of people just not wanting to eat healthy food. This used to be a grocery store. Located in the East End of Richmond, in Churchill, DaVita Dialysis sits at the corner of 25th and P. About 10 years ago, it used to be a community pride, which wasn't exactly a full-line grocery store, but it still served the purpose. Compare this area of Churchill, which has no grocery stores at all, just a lot of those bodegas and corner stores I talked about, with an area in the west end of Richmond called Carytown, where I could literally park my car and go to 4 grocery stores in one block. I can go to a store called Elwood Thompson's, then I can walk across the street and go to Martin's, then walk across the other street and go to Food Lion, then walk across the other street and go to Fresh Market. So the comparison of these 2 areas is the contrast that we deal with when we talk about food access. Not to mention, on the south side of Richmond, there's an intersection that I was born at, which is called the Broad Rock Corridor. From Walmsley Boulevard, you can travel from Walmsley Boulevard about 5 miles up. This is a major thoroughfare. You know, one of those 4-lane streets with the median in the middle? No grocery stores at all. At all. But you got Dollar Generals, Family Dollars, and 7-Elevens all up and down the strip. The problem is poverty. This is where it comes from. In the South Side and the East End, the poverty problem in the city of Richmond, it has multitude of different issues or reasons why it exists. But the thing that I like to speak on the most is that it was deliberately created. It wasn't by accident. During the 40s and 50s, you had urban renewal, which cut a highway through the middle of the burgeoning Black Wall Street, the 2nd Street corridor, basically destroyed the community and all of its businesses as a result. And then you also had federal, state, local policies, especially with housing, that basically cordoned off large portions of the black community into these dark brown areas where you have high density poverty. These areas also correlate to the largest areas of housing project density south of New York City. Okay? So what we say is that entrepreneurial urban agriculture gets to the root of the issue. You know, we're not trying to make a joke, but we really want to get to the root of the problem. Now, what is sustainable urban agriculture? All right. Usually people talk about sustainable agriculture and they talk about the environmental aspects. Well, hey, you know, we need to regenerate the soil. It needs to be our agriculture that doesn't damage the planet. It talks about being an integrated system where plants and animals work together in order to produce food, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, coming from a community organizing / business perspective, sustainable urban agriculture also has a vital component that usually isn't talked about, and that's the people. You know, with sustainable urban agriculture, we're talking about a system that's not only environmentally synergistic, whereas, you know, of course, we're building up the soil to make sure that you have good quality plants. We're also talking about it being economically viable, as in people make money from off of growing food. And then third, we're talking about the community. Is the community actually a part of this agriculture? We could set up, we'll talk about urban agriculture sites in a second, but usually what we see in terms of urban farming, we see communities that are not really, or individuals that are not a part of that community going in, setting up sites, and the community is not really a part of the farm. You have people giving away food or they're selling food, but that money is leaving the community. So with sustainable urban agriculture, my concept and what I would like to really emphasize with you all today is that you have community buy-in. It expands the community livelihood. You have community commitment to the project, and the community is actually participating in it on an ongoing basis. Sustainable urban ag. Now, this is one of our sites. Renew Richmond's urban farm is about 3-4 years old. It's on Midlothian Turnpike, and this farm serves as a hub for vocational development and a reconnection of the community to the local food system. Not only that, but we use it as an outdoor classroom to teach people about culinary arts, nutrition education. When we say holistic community engagement, what we mean is it's culturally relevant and it speaks to the identity of the community. And I think that's one of the main things that's missing when we deal with conversations around community engagement. People will come into the community and they don't really have a relationship. They don't know they don't have the cultural competency to really engage that community and have an authentic relationship. So say, for instance, we're dealing with an area in Southside that's predominantly black. or predominantly Latino, we can't go into that neighborhood and say, hey, we got bok choy, because it's missing the mark. So when we talk about culinary arts, I can go into a Latino community, say, hey, we're going to teach you to make Armenian food. It's a missing link. You have to understand the traditions, the cultural lifestyle, and just the vision of the community as a whole. Now, for 5-6 years, I worked with Department of Social Services during the development of these concepts around urban ag. And the city of Richmond averages about 25,000 to 30,000 cases of SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps, on a monthly basis. So that's about $6 million a month that circulates within the 60 square miles that is Richmond, Virginia. That money in those food desert communities is absent. It goes to a store that's not in that community. Say it goes to a Walmart or it goes to a Food Lion. So how can we utilize that financial capital to do intensive surgery financially on the community? We think, or we say, that if you could just sequester 10% of that $6 million a month, you can create over 200 jobs at $30,000 a year. It's an economic imperative. Now, people will be like, oh, food, you can't make money farming. And I say that is absolutely not true. How many of us in here have mastered the art of sequestering our nutritional needs through just breathing air? Nobody? Everybody's gonna buy food. Doesn't matter, you might get the newest Jordans, you might have the next level Da Vinci, or you might even get the best new watch or the newest iPhone. And that's cool for right now, but 20 years ago, I guarantee you will still be eating kale, all right? The human body hasn't evolved past the need for food. Now, in the city of Richmond, there's about 23 acres of vacant land that's owned by the city, okay? With Virginia State University and our work with Renew Richmond, we apply a dollar value to every square foot of an acre and surmise that 43,560 square feet in an acre, that is the equivalent of $43,560 per season when you're growing food. Now, because you have to, of course, develop a market where you're going to sell the food to, you have major institutions in every major city. You have your school system that's always looking for locally grown organic foods, correct? We have a huge farm-to-school conversation that's happening across the nation now. You have your hospitals who are buying food every day for the individuals that are that are spending time inside of those facilities. You have cafeterias, all these different anchor institutions that are always purchasing food, but they're purchasing the food from where? Not inside the city limits. They're purchasing food, hopefully, we pray, we say local, within 100 miles or more, but every organization has its own definitions of what local foods is. And if we can develop relationships with these institutions, not only selling food to the community, individuals, those major contracts is what sustains the urban farm enterprise. Now, that's the hard way. The easier way, or the more innovative technological way that I've been exploring and been blessed to be a part of is indoor farming. In areas that are designated as food deserts, you have tons of not only vacant, blighted properties that are just empty and just weeds growing, or the city's paying to cut the grass, but you also have vacant buildings. So these buildings can be utilized to grow food indoors. Energy efficient, the technology exists now to retrofit facilities with solar power, grow food hydroponically or aquaponically. At the Virginia State Project, we're growing food both ways, installing solar panels on an old recreation center that had been vacated by the city of Petersburg in the middle of a residential neighborhood. I mean, what's more local than we're in the middle of a neighborhood? Again, the question I had earlier, show of hands, how many of us are white? How many of us are black, Asian, Latino? All right, how many of us have the power to, just stand outside in the sun and go, and get all of our nutrients? I'll see no hands. Yeah. Well, you're one of the few, and I'm trying to evolve to that point, My sons will be able to do it, I guarantee. But right now, everybody has to eat. Everybody, every human being on the planet has to eat. Due to having generations of disconnection from our local food systems, the migration of African Americans from rural areas into the city, we created a very unique situation where if we start realizing that food is a commodity, we go into the community not to grow food to give it away, but we go into the community to grow food to sell, realizing that that is a way that we can regenerate our community. And that's basically the meat and potatoes of what I got to say. Thank y'all.